thank you for the floor. We believe that society has an important role in bringing people together, instilling a sense of civic duty, and helping poor people to overcome some of the inequalities in society. I'm going to talk about three things. First, why we think this is justified. Second, why it helps combat social hierarchies and why that is a good thing. And thirdly, how it benefits some of the most vulnerable groups in society. Mechanism. So we think that it's not super exactly what it is. There's going to be things that need to be done, typically sort of community service stuff, helping out in nursing homes, doing IT support in government agencies. It's going to be kind of similar, we think, to similar to type of things you typically do in kind of conscription when you're not doing the military stuff, right? And we think you'll work in teams, you might be sent somewhere else, etc. And of course, typical conscription type things like there might be deferments, there might be exceptions for whatever special reasons some people may have. I think that's not super important. Okay, so moving to my first point here. Why do you think this is justified? So essentially, the state has a right to coerce citizens into things that they necessarily want to do, given that it's sufficiently beneficial to society. We do this all the time, right? We force kids to go to school for 9 years, no matter whether they want to or not. But we think it's a good thing for kids to have education. It's an important thing, so we force it, right? We force people in most Western countries to save up money for their retirement. They don't have a say in it. We just take some of their paycheck and give it back to them when they retire, right? These are things that we do because they're beneficial, they're good things, and we're perfectly fine with that. So we think that in general, forcing people to do something is something we're quite fine with, right? And one of the reasons for this is that you're part of a kind of social contract, right? So you're part of a society and you derive a lot of benefits from the society, public good provisions. Things that, if something bad happens, the fire brigade shows up on time, right? Those are things that you get, by living in this society. I think that because you derive these benefits, society has a right to, force you to contribute things back. And that's something that we think is justified and given that it's not very harmful to you, I think in this case it's not very harmful, it might actually be quite good for you, and given that it's good for society, we think that it's perfectly justified to force people to do it. Right? So secondly, what are the benefits here? So we think that one of the key benefits is that it helps combat social hierarchies, right? Because we have sort of random draws of people working together in these kind of teams, right? They come from different walks of life. And we think this helps foster a sense of solidarity and more sort of civic mindedness, because people are prejudiced largely towards people they don't really know. And I think that in society today, people tend to be quite secluded. Right? If I grew up in a sort of rich and nice suburb, thank you. If I grew up in a rich and nice suburb, I'll be surrounded by other sort of rich kids, upper middle class kids, right? And then I go to a school like that, and I'll meet other sort of schoolmates like that. And then, I'll go to university, I'll meet people to university, but it also skews heavily towards that. And I'll get maybe a high-paid job where I'll tend to meet other people who have similar benefits to me. Okay, sure.
Can you give us examples of, for example, what kind of service center are going to be? And secondly, can you explain to me whether those people are going to stay in the city they're living in, or you're going to move them away?
I already did both of these things, right? I said, for example, nursing homes, and I said, for example, we might send them away to another area. So I think both of these are things that I want to mention, but I just said them again, so hopefully that's fine now. So yeah, we might send them away, but we don't necessarily send them away. We think that depends. And if we do, then obviously we provide accommodation, similar to how conscription works, basically. This is conscription, right, but just not the military stuff. Okay, so we think that prejudice tends to derive then from the fact that you don't know large groups of people. If I come from a rich or privileged area, I'm unlikely to meet sort of people with poor backgrounds throughout my life. I'm unlikely to know them personally. I'm unlikely to know people from, say, ethnic minorities if I live, in a place where there's also racial segregation, which we see in many countries as well. So we think that in this case, desegregation solves everything, right? Having people coming into contact with other people and having sort of close interaction with them for a year is something that makes you much more likely to know people from different walks of life, and thus realize that the conception I had about those people might be probably wrong, right? And they're not so different. They can be nice people, etc. I think it's a general thing that we get. And this is something that people typically cite when it comes to conscription. When you spend sort of a year with your army buddies, they'll stay your friends for life, even though you're very different. It's a typical sort of thing that we have. I think that this is a benefit that we get under this motion as well. I mean, this is an important goal for society, right? Because you need a society to instill this kind of civic mindedness and the idea that we're sort of all in it together. Other people, even if they're from different backgrounds, are still sort of kind of my guys in some sense of the word, right? Because this is where society only functions if people feel some kind of sense of trust towards the rest of the community. Things like tax fraud, things like following laws in general. Because the government can, of course, punish people for violating laws, but it's very hard to punish like everyone if everyone does it. What we see in countries with a sort of low level of social capital, say a country like Greece, where you have like massive tax evasion, because most people simply don't feel that the society is something that they should contribute towards. They don't feel like it's kind of legitimate. But that's a create a vicious cycle as well, because once you have a society that doesn't function very well, it loses even more legitimacy. So instead of this is like a very sort of valid thing for the state to try to do. It has a lot of general benefits. Of course, we know it's not like a binary sort of fail safe, great safe. I think this is general scale. The more social capital you have, it's always going to be better. It's always going to have some of these benefits, no matter where you sort of start out. So thirdly then, how does it help vulnerable people? So we said there are two things here, right? There are skills, and we think that like, some of this stuff is going to be a bit vocational. I said things like IT support, whatever. We think that people might learn in some cases from it. But I think that more importantly, a lot of things that are important to get a job is things like being able to get up in the morning, having like discipline, being able to work in a team, interacting with people in a professional sense. And this is something that is often hard to get. If you come from maybe a place with high unemployment, you don't have like strong connections. And the reason why employers are often very reluctant to hire people without work experience, precisely because you can't check from a CV just automatically if someone is good at working in teams, if they have these people skills, if they're like, able to do these things, which is why you don't tend, which is why you tend to value job experience. It basically gives job experience to everyone who wants a background. We think that's quite useful. I know motivators, including me, don't really have real jobs, but I wrote a paper on this, so it's true. But secondly, we think that another thing that tends to hold poor people back is lack of social capital. So what this is about, like lack of connections, is something that matters a lot for being able to get into a career, right? If I don't have my dad's friend running a company that can hire me, if I don't know someone with a lot of money who can bankroll my startup, if I don't have one of my parents on the board of Harvard or whatever, I have a lot of barriers towards me sort of getting anywhere. And this is something that is like, sort of commonly cited as one of the big things holding back people from poor backgrounds. Under our motion, we get some of that, right? Now, because I got thrown into as a poor person in this team, I became best friends with some guy whose parents are really rich. Suddenly, I do have some connections. Suddenly, it is easier for me to get some of these things. Maybe I can get a loan to do something. I can get some financial support. I can get, someone who can introduce me to someone who can hire me, etc., etc. So we think that these are things that are quite valuable for people who otherwise tend to struggle in society. So we get more equality. So we think, it's perfectly justified for the state to do this kind of thing. It makes society more trustworthy, and it makes sort of poor people have better careers. We're very proud to propose.
People who are coming in now, we're keeping this very free. There's lots of free chairs around the end of the room. If you can come in as quickly as possible. As quickly as possible would be marvellous. Okay, I would like to thank the speaker very much for that excellent speech, and now call upon the Leader of the Opposition to open the case of the Opposition.
The burden of the government here is to show us why we need to force this, why we need to have everybody have to do this, and not, for instance, to mitigate this by, say, advertising these jobs or even incentivizing people to do so, right? They show us two things in order to do so, right? They tell us, first of all, there's a principle, right? We're okay with forcing people to do some things. Okay, that's not enough of a principle. It's right that we force people to do some things, we don't force them to do everything. The things we force them to do is things that are absolutely necessary for these people or for society, and we can't have them any other way. An example for that is education, right? We force people to go through that because we think they won't be able to go on in life without this. We think this doesn't happen because under the status quo, people do manage to get on quite well without this. Second of all, he tells us about solidarity, okay? Like, whole point about how we need like a better people. First of all, we don't understand why in general, why we think this motion is going to give it, and I think that in most cases we can have to do it, but we can have like other ways to do so and to gain more social mobility. The reasons we get for this social mobility is that they tell us that people like rich people and poor people are going to get the same jobs, and then they're going to become best friends, and then they're going to have connections. We think first of all this like explanation is a bit shallow and it's a bit unrealistic. Why? First of all, the rich people already have more connections. They're probably going to get better jobs, right? They already have more money. Even if they get the same jobs, they're going to be higher up within those organizations. We think this happens in every organization. It's probably going to happen here as well. Third of all, the rich people probably have more experience. These IT jobs you're talking about are probably going to go to computer science majors in high school and not to the people who didn't finish high school or lived in the slums, right? That's probably not what's going to happen. And then they won't see each other. But even if they do see each other, the thing that they're going to see is people that are very different from them, people who they feel they have nothing in common with, people that they see do a worse job in those IT jobs, for instance, and that cause them in many cases to feel, and that's because those people didn't get this opportunity as like these rich people think, not because they're less able than those people, but that's a conception that we're going to have, and they're going to see that the rich people get better jobs and feel even more entrenched in that, okay? So we think all of that, all the points that they gave us just don't stand. What am I going to show you today? First of all, I'm going to show you that these people, when they do this volunteer work, are going to do bad work. And this work is going to affect not only those people themselves, but the people who get these services from these people. My main example is going to be like his nursery point and the point you talk about like helping in hospitals or whatever. Second of all, I'm going to say that this is going to affect other people going into the system, like the younger siblings and the brothers of these, and the friends of these people. Third of all, I'm going to show you why these people are not going to stay longer. So if you take like the strong side of their case and why these people are going to stay there, it's not going to happen. Actually, it's going to happen less, and my partner will show you later why this is going to happen less, even the people who do come today. So first of all, I want you to know that this motion is about the people who do not come today, right? Because everybody who already wants to go to these places can do this all right without forcing them already to do so. The only people that you gain here are that you might gain, and you might lose some others, right? The only people that you gain are people who don't want to do this now, right? Okay, why do they not want to do so? They probably think they want to go in with their life, right? They want to like get an education, they want to start their life, to start to see what they're good at, to see what they like or what they don't. Maybe they just don't like this type of work, don't like to work like with people who they see as weak. Maybe they see they have like bad influence and think that they just don't want to do it in general, or they just don't want to wait to like spend a year on this and want to do this like later at a different time in their life when they feel like they're more ready for this. Okay? Now what's going to happen to these people, right? These people are going to feel that they're punished, that they have to do something not because they want to, and that it stops them from doing all the other things that they want to do so. It's probably things that won't help me in my future, because I probably don't want to work like in a hospital, right? If I feel like I don't want to do this right now, right? I could have gone and volunteered in this place in the first place, right? So these people don't want to work. I'll take close.
On which side of the house do you think it's more likely that I'm going to get a course or offer an amount of fame for my job? When I know that I'm going to be staying there for a year and I can resign, or when the employer knows that I'm going to can leave whenever I want?
Okay, I think that what we're going to get here is we're going to get people exactly for 1 year, and I think that in that sense the training is going to be minimal, right? Because we know that almost everybody is going to leave right after this. Furthermore, we think this exactly explains which type of jobs we're talking about. The jobs which have the least amount of abilities needed because they need it to be for everyone, and they need the people to be effective within this 1 year. So we're not going to get any successful training on their side of the bench, and if we do, it's very little. Now, what we're going to say is why this won't work in general. Because the people don't have any motivation to be there. They didn't want to be there in the first place, right? These people don't have any experience, again, like I told in the answer to the POI, so it's probably going to be pretty bad jobs. And they're probably going to spread this, the feeling that of the bad feeling across the organization to other people within this organization, to the people who they're giving care to, and to younger siblings and friends. Now, what's going to happen in the macro, right, the global case? The market's going to be flooded with these people, right? We're going to have a lot of bureaucracy, because it always happens when you have billions of people each year coming into the system. People are not going to get what they want. They're going to get things that they're needed, because again, that's what happens when you have so many people. And then people are not going to want to stay there, right? The volunteers, and when they're there, they're going to feel like they don't want to be there at all. So they're going to go on like long coffee breaks or say that they're sick. Now this means that as an organization, you can't plan ahead. You can't do anything to function properly as an organization, right? Because you have people like workers who are unqualified to do so. So that leads to bad service to the people who are the subjects of this, right? Like in a nursery, the children are not going to get like the water that they need, or not going to get enough care and enough attention. Second of all, you think like a mentor for a child might not be a good influence, it's actually going to be a bad influence because he might not come some of the times because he just doesn't feel like it, okay? And there's no one there to like punish him. What are they going to do? It's like something they forced him to do in the first place. Now, in the comparative, I think most of these jobs happen today because our society functions properly. We think what we're going to have is like less expenses on these things right now because we have cheap labor to do it. But the cheap labor does it not as well, and this hurts the weakest people in our society, the people in the nurseries, the people in the hospital, and these are the people who don't want to hurt. But to the people themselves, I'm going to start this point, my partner will continue later, okay? These people, and another thing, we think it's better to give them even no help in some cases rather than like some, which is bad, like the mentor. We'd rather have like no mentor at all than somebody who cuts time. But the people themselves won't want us to stay there. They don't have enough time to stay there just 1 year, but they feel that they have done enough. They have done what they need to do to society. They probably won't want to help and donate in other ways that they've done. They see that they don't like doing this because they have done things that they're not good at, right? And therefore, it reduces the chance that they might do this, that they might help, even if this chance was existent in the first place. I showed you why this is like bad in principle. I showed you many harms to the people who get the service. I showed them harms to the volunteers themselves. All sufficient reasons not to accept this motion. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to talk a bit about who exactly are we sending, what are these type of 18-year-olds, and who might benefit and who might lose out, and where the equation lands, how it's not just, oh, we force this, well, only the people who absolutely don't want to do this who will then be doing it, but there are people who with a lack of information or lack of idea that the facts thing, that the choice can actually be liberating for them and give them an alternative that they hadn't considered or been able to consider in any other way of making this. And also then I'm going to do some comparison on the harms and the benefits and in different areas. So before that, a bit of rebuttals. So first of all, they're saying people won't be making any connections because they'll go to different areas, for example. We don't think that's necessarily true, but if we see that there's a self-segregation within the system, we might do ways to combat it, right, as a government. If we're sending a bunch of people elsewhere, we might have quotas or whatever. But secondly, we don't think people make connections in the way that they describe. Like if I'm in the same area as a person, usually it's a clash of personalities, and if our personalities sort of match up, we become friends. It's not about like, oh, he's a bad worker, I'm a good worker, or something like that that makes you become friends. We don't think that that's how bonds are made. Secondly, they're saying like, oh look, they're going to be given minimal training. No, first of all, the government decides the amount of training. It could be like a year that's only training if you think that's beneficial, like fire brigade or something like that. Or it could be celebrating training. But secondly, we think that we want to help these out. Like the purpose is to give them skills, that we would have emphasis on training within that. Thirdly, they're saying like, oh, they're going to do massively bad work. But the point is here that we want to instill a sense of professionalism, right? So we're holding them to certain standards, and we want to ask them to live up to those standards. If their analysis holds, then it also holds for like schooling, for example. Oh, we can't teach them how to do schools because people resent being forced to go to school, and then we'll do bad work there. But in general, see, schooling works. We instill the sort of values of the school to be able to study, to be able to get things done, and we think that in general it works on society. But also we believe that in general you can also look at minimum things. Like under the comparative, if we don't have people cleaning parks or people being old folks homes being understaffed and nobody's talking to the elderly, for example, we think that having a person there, we don't think that even if they're resentful in the beginning, they might still be able to bond with that old person, realize they're interesting. But secondly, we don't think that they will because I don't like being here, I'm going to be a total dick to everyone or start, instead of cleaning the part, throwing trash out. We don't think that's necessarily what will happen. So, I'm going into my first point. Who are we sending? We're sending these 18-year-olds. And 18-year-olds in general are usually quite self-centered and, a lot of ways very individualistic, right? It's the basis from where they're coming from in childhood. I mean, we've grown up also in this massively individualistic culture, consumer culture, that sort of exacerbate this effect, right? Because kids are selfish to begin with, right? You're a sort of solipsism where the world revolves around you. And it's worse today because for lower birth rates, a lot of kids are in single kid families, so they don't even have their siblings to contend for attention of their parents. Beyond that, you have the self-aggrandization of social media, right? And sort of to put on the best image, I'm the center of the world, that goes on there. And the consumerism, with the gadgets and the fashion and whatnot, that sort of teaches that you as an individual are of value in regards to your service only as things can be useful to you. So, we're saying that the problem with this, not only is that narrative harmful for society in general, also harmful for the individual, because it makes you harder to empathize and socialize with other people, right? And this is true for a lot of 18-year-olds, that they don't have contact with other types of people that might be similar to themselves, as Gustav already brought up, but they don't have contact with other people in sort of other areas of life, like people who are older, for example. So, it's hard for them to perhaps realize that it's not about you or not about the people exactly like you, but it's about others and society in general, right? And we think that giving can be quite enriching, and particularly to those who lack the self-awareness, which is true for a lot of 18-year-olds. So we think that this can be a massive beneficial experience in that sense, right? Yes, I'll take it.
I still haven't understood why our principled case and why in general this is necessary to have the integration you're talking about, and it is so necessary that we have to enforce everybody to do so. There are a million of alternatives to what you're talking about.
All right. Well, actually, that's a common misconception. We need to force this, because if we don't force it, then not all 18-year-olds will do it. Like, the integration point that we want to have won't exist if we're not forcing everyone to integrate. Like, if these groups are good and pushy, then the privileged will get them, and they won't go to the underprivileged. If they're sort of bad jobs and nobody wants to, then it's more likely that the underprivileged go, then the privileged will try to keep out of it. We want to put these groups together, and thus we have to force them together. So we want to integrate everyone, and that there's a lack of that on your side. But the point is also that as an 18-year-old, even if you're massively privileged, even if you're under, you still might be lost, right? You might not know where you are in life. Now, you might know exactly what you want to do in life, sure, and then we restrict you for a year, we take away your time for a year, and then we let you go and you can do that thing you want to, be a doctor or whatever. But for a lot of people, you don't know what you want in life, and it's hard to make a choice because there's a billion choices out there, right? So, by actually taking you and saying, we'll try this out for a year, and push you in there, it might actually help you, right? Realize this is what I want. Or alternatively, realize this is not what I want, and that can also be beneficial. And this can be specifically true for like places where you're pushed into something in that sense, but also for areas where you don't know what you want, or areas where you don't have a choice. Like if you feel like you have no choice, for example, you are in a social setting that you're sort of stuck in, bad friendships or bad social circles that are leading you in a path that's bad for you, then taking them out of this and showing like, no, this is an alternative, putting them in a different social circle massively helps these people. We're not saying it's beneficial for everyone to be put in a different social circle, but be put in a generally good context massively helps out those who are in a bad context, and at the harm of those who are already in a good circle who can then go back to that after a year. And this is also true for the privileged, right? If I'm brought up in a mentality that I have to go to this privileged school and that one and that university and become that sort of banker, it might not be that I've actually thought about these things, but taking me out of that context, putting me in another one, meeting people from different parts of society might actually empower me to make a better choice of what I want to do in my life. And not when I'm 40 having a midlife crisis, realize I didn't want to become a banker, have a trophy wife, and that sort of lifestyle, just because my father was a debater and thought it was good. So, and putting me in McKinsey and whatnot. So look at the harms and benefits. So the harms under this model is that we restrict people for a year, but we already restrict people under the status quo for like 9 to 12 years in schooling, right? So it's not a big harm we're talking about. These are 18-year-olds. And the economic benefits, 18-year-olds don't do much for the economy, right? It's not like it's bad to take them out. But the benefits we're having there by increasing integration, disrupting of segregation, fostering social bonds, teaching skills, teaching routines, giving more work experience, giving more context for those who have no context, and allowing and instilling us as a national duty, that's passive, right? Look at restriction. They're already restricted in regards to social segregation. We removed that. That weighs over the restriction to their time for the privilege, right? Look at economic activity. The benefit of an 18-year-old working is not as big as the benefits to those more admin skills and stuff we talked about. On the areas of the comparative, it falls on side proposition. That's why you should vote for us. Thank you very much.
Very much for that speech. I'd like to call upon the member of opposition. And I'd like to call upon the audience to be quiet.
Ready? The previous speaker says on the comparative, but he doesn't really engage with the true comparative in this debate, and that's why we think that opening proposition have a really big problem in this debate. Why is that? Let's address several issues. First of all, when you take a look at the justifications in this case, we see that they tell us you force people to do a lot of things all the time, right? My partner already tells you not everything, and there are certain limitations. They build their case, the justification on the fact that you force people to go through the educational system. We already told you that this is different. Why is that? Because education is considered something necessary for the specific individual, and if you don't go through, you will not be able to actually live a proper life in the future. So for your benefit, we force you to do so. Exactly the case with pensions, for example. If you want to talk about, and that's why there's no justification from the individual perspective. But if you want to take a look at the society perspective here, then the justification is only utilitarian. So the moment that we show you, you get more bad outcomes, we win the debate. Let's show you how we actually have done that already, and they failed to engage with. Because they come and tell us, A, we will find, if they see segregation within the organizations, they'll find ways to deal with it. It would have been very nice if they bothered to explain to us exactly how are they going to do so. But then they tell us, well, people bond according to their, a clique of personality. The question that my partner raises and doesn't get a response to is, will I even talk to the person in the first place to actually know his or her personality? Because we explained to you very clearly why most chances are that the more privileged in our society will have specific works, and the less privileged other works. We're saying that if I see someone who is now a clerk working on a computer versus someone who's only helping in cleaning, for example, in cleaning the building, I have no incentive to actually talk with this individual, because it just feeds into the perceptions we have in society already today that the person cleaning the toilet is less worthy and not at the same level, the same intelligent level, and with the same background that I am. So we don't think we actually get more bonding. But if you do want integration, we never heard why you need this specific mechanism. You want to integrate kids in school, you want to have special programs for that. That might be a good idea, because you know why? To these specific programs, people don't come in with the perception that I am being forced to do something that I don't want for an entire year, that's preventing my opportunity to advance myself. No. Because last thing, he tells us, well, you know what? Even if I don't want to be here, maybe I will bond with this old guy. That doesn't mean I have to be a dick. The thing is that we tell you, not maybe I will bond, maybe I won't. We gave you extensive analysis why more likely I won't want to bond. What I will want to do, I will want to do the minimum necessary just to go through this year and make sure I don't have to spend my time. You know what? School is actually the perfect example for us, because you see that although most children do understand that school is important for them to some extent, right? Kids cut school all the time. They don't want to be there. The same thing happens here, but now you have a system flooded with these people, and you're not engaging with how this harms the system itself, when now it has to, but now it has to deal with these people instead of actually caring for the people you want to care for, when now you have to run after, when now you can no longer plan ahead properly because you don't have the proper working force within this organization. What else do I want to say here? Okay. Last thing I want to talk about, even if you want to talk about the economical level, please note that this 1 year at the beginning of their life, when do you actually pay for it? At the end of life, because the year that you're giving up now is the year at the end, before they retire. Now you have less year of them working in the elderly age, when you actually have more income and you pay more taxes, meaning you offer more social services by the money that you put in the taxes they pay. We need to lose that also on the economy level. Let's move on to my more constructive case, because at the bottom line, we tell you, we agree with proposition that the people who are going to receive these services are probably the weakest of the weak, right? The elderly, children, for example, that's what they say. We tell you that these are exactly the populations that don't have the political power to fight for their rights and for their needs today. They don't have the time, they don't have the resources, they're all the time just managing to say that they can't go and protest, they can't have lobbying, etc., etc. Now, please note that every country, the budget is always limited. We're always looking to places to cut down. We're saying now you give the government a huge incentive to cut down exactly in these specific areas. Why is that? Because now you have so many people, an entire generation of 18-year-olds, right, that can come and work. Well, we didn't hear in a mechanism if they're actually going to be paid, but let's take the hard case, that they are paid like probably a minimum wage, not more, and this is really the best case scenario for them. We're saying now you have very cheap labor force in these specific areas. We explain to you why they will probably not do a good job, because their training will be minimal, because the training, they don't have organizational memory of things, because they only stay for 1 year. They have all the incentives to leave after a year because they don't really want to be there. They're just, and probably just suffering there. So we're saying that now not only do the weakest people get worse service, they also get only the bad service, because now the government is depending on them to provide these services, unlike the people that we have today. We also say that this motion disincentivizes the people who want to volunteer today. But before I extend all that, I'll let the close opening engage.
You're still more likely to talk to and interact with the person you meet with every day than if you never meet that person because of segregation.
Okay, yes, exactly, and we think that influence you might have is horrible. This is the equation we set you on side opposition. I rather, okay, the child or the elderly have no one from these volunteers if this volunteer that is coming is doing a bad job. If this volunteer is actually creating damage because he doesn't get me my food or my pills or my water on time. If this volunteer is teaching a child to beat up other kids or to curse, for example, we don't want him influencing the child. We think you got a better chance to having proper role models and helpers when they have an incentivized to do so from goodwill. That's why we said we're okay with you advertising. We're okay with you giving like maybe economical incentives, but don't force them. The forcing here is what creates the difference. Now we tell you that while today you have people volunteering and doing this because of the sense of good feeling, because of the sense of value they get from this, because they're doing something altruistic and then feeling good, you now lose also these people as well, because what they're doing is no longer considered altruistic. They're just doing it for the regular, like because they have to, meaning they become demotivated as well. So at the bottom line, what we present to inside opposition, then sometimes the so-called help that proposition wants to supply is actually more harmful for the people that you want to harm. That's why we don't want them in this system. We showed you why you don't get the benefits, not the integration, not the social solidarity that they're talking about, and we show that they never really justified the mechanism they're proposing today. We beg you to oppose.
Very much for that speech, and indeed thank the building for allowing it to go ahead. With fingers crossed and with trepidation, I now call upon the Member of Government for what is going to be the second half of an excellent debate.
Well, I've been waiting to speak for quite a while. Let's do this.
Opening government in this debate talks to us about improving social integration, promoting altruism, etc. And they also give us the principal justification of taxation, and this actually being something similar. Opening opposition come up and tell us that you don't need to enforce this on people, you should only give subsidies in order to be able to promote exactly the same things. What we're going to talk to you is about a huge structural problem of youth unemployment in Europe and how we're solving this through this mechanism, why we need everybody on board in order to be able to progress the sort of change that we need, about why we have certain structural problems that won't be solved otherwise. We're also going to explain to you why this is actually similar to a state of emergency, which would call for conscription and therefore could call for this sort of policy as well. So three main points. First of all, why this is similar to a national emergency. Second of all, why we're allowing people more access to skills and references that will help them in future jobs. Third of all, why we're in the long term creating more jobs in the market in general. Before that, a few points of rebuttal to what we heard from opening opposition. First of all, their main analysis really is that people will not want to work and will be bad workers. Now, we say some of them obviously are going to find some purpose in what they do. We say it's a natural human thing. If you're doing something for a long time, you're going to justify to yourself that there is something good in it. Second of all, a lot of them are going to have friends who are working with them in these fields and are also likely to come simply because they like the place, they like the job, they like the people. Moreover, we can penalize them because this is a mandatory service. We actually have more sanctions against them than we have against the regular employee taking breaks and so on. But moreover, we say, we give you a quite intuitive notion that even if some of them work less well, even a child that skips school sometimes is going to learn more than a child that doesn't go to school at all. Obviously, we are going to have millions of people working in these jobs. Obviously, you're going to have more of them actually contributing, actually working well. Maybe, yes, there will be some cases when a mentor teaches a child to curse. We don't think that's a likely scenario. We don't see why that's such a major harm. We don't see why we can supervise them in order not to do these sort of things. Then they tell us, but people won't want to contribute otherwise. First of all, we say they have more exposure now to societal problems, therefore, and more of a personal connection with societal problems, therefore more of a chance that they are going to contribute. But moreover, we honestly don't know why these contributions are so meaningful, given that the amount of people actually doing volunteer work compared to millions of people today being able to work in all these fields is minimal. We don't see that many people taking time from their lives, especially in young ages when they're pursuing a career and doing actual significantly contributing work. Then they tell us, but people aren't actually going to integrate. Excellent, let's force them to do it. Let's put them into different groups in order for them to achieve exactly that. Then they tell us, but there is a government incentive now to cut budgets for these places. First of all, we are the government in this debate and we will not cut budgets for these things. Second of all, we say that if we actually solve problems, then it's excellent, then we don't need more budgets there and we can appropriate them to other very, very important things. We say that's actually a benefit on our side of the house. Let's talk quickly about national emergency. We say two things. First of all, huge aging population in Europe today, meaning people who actually don't have someone to support them, people who have health risks, people who are disabled and can't actually go by themselves. The fact that we can attach to each of these people someone who can treat him, say even if he does not have the money to do this himself. The fact that we now have a state service that's able to provide all these things. We're saying otherwise it takes huge budgets of our health budgets which go to medicine. Here we can actually have enough people to suit every elderly in need with someone to help him. We're saying this saves lives literally. This is more important actually and saves more lives than in most conscriptions in most armies. Second of all, we say that huge unemployment results in people losing years of their lives. People less ability for the government to provide services because of less taxation, again translating to massive harms to society, harms of people turning to crime. All these sorts of things happen significantly less under our side of the house, and we'll show you why. Let's go to solving youth unemployment. First of all, by access to skills. We say that firstly, there is a problem of people who come out of high school without the necessary qualifications. They don't, sometimes without even the qualifications in order to go to university, but definitely without the proper skills in order to work. Now, most jobs will not take up a person who doesn't have any sort of work record. Why is that the case? Because first of all, they don't know how good of a worker he's going to be. They don't know if he can actually provide them with any value. And second of all, they don't know if he's going to quit in a month. Because we say that's one of the things that concerns jobs most about taking young people is the notion that they don't have a family yet, they're not obligated to anything, therefore they don't actually think that they're likely to hire them. Here, first of all, you are able to pay them significantly less. We're saying this is similar to unpaid internships or small paid internships, but in a very large scale. I mean, you have a huge economic incentive for companies to take on these people. But moreover, we say that you have the state obligating you that this person is going to stay there for a year. You can plan his career in the way that he's there for a year. You can start a course, maybe not a hugely influential one, but just to give him basic work skills, and you know the person is going to stay there. Therefore, he has the foot in the door. He has the qualifications that later in his life will enable him, first of all, when he goes to university, to keep on working, and when he gets out of it, to have already the record that he has worked, to have references, to have the qualifications. Moreover, and before I go on, I'll take closing. Yes.
Yeah, but what are those skills that companies usually want?
Okay, first of all, we say reliability. First of all. Second of all, the notion that you have worked in something that you have proven yourself. Third of all, if you're working in education, you get certain skills of interacting with people and of teaching complex material, we say that's good enough. Let's talk about the second thing we're getting here is massive improvement to education. Because we get significant, massive amount of workforce in schools. Usually we say that the reason people drop out, the reason people don't finish school well enough to get to university is because they get a gap. Because they miss something in class, and then they miss something else because they can't understand that thing, and so on and so forth. Here, we're able to have 5 mentors in every class to help people to help children when they're stuck. We're able to have, we're able in every class to have significantly more manpower. We say that's hugely beneficial because this allows more people to access this sort of education. But moreover, more generally in producing new sorts of work, we say that we are able, first of all, to invest much more in infrastructure. Things that only the government can do, like building new roads to connect new places in order to increase buying power and increase people's ability to travel to different places and work there and be more socially mobile. We're also saying you have more of an ability to get the entire population with skills through education, like, for example, entrepreneurship. Things that actually progress new workplaces that otherwise would not have been open. We're saying for all these reasons, we're first of all allowing more people to get a chance, and we're allowing generally in society more social mobility, more people integrating into jobs. We beg you to propose. Thank you.
I would like to thank the speaker very much for that speech, and now call upon the member of opposition to continue the case of the opposition bench.
Honorable panel, this debate requires a paradigm shift. Because everyone so far assumes and asserts that there is some moral responsibility that we care to the state. Opening opposition says there are no moral responsibilities. We're going to give you much of the reasons why we don't have moral responsibility towards state rather to ourselves. Secondly, what are going to be harms to those people that we send them? And thirdly, why all the things the government said can be achieved either differently or they're not going to be achieved at all. First point of rebuttal. They say this emergency because we have aging population. Couple of responses. You can make, firstly, working age longer. It's already doing in some of the European countries. Secondly, you can import more immigrants. We have lots of people living in the world. We believe that you have working people who can give us money for the pensions. Thirdly, you can incentivize people to have more kids. We believe there are many alternatives. And the emergency can be only legitimate if it is the only way. They need to prove that. Second point, they say that people gain some qualifications. We disagree. Firstly, the qualifications that company needs are usually not helping the elderly or a social cohesion or something like that. Usually, those things are like IT qualifications or something like that. Even if you concede that lots of the people will gain some of that qualification, some of the people simply don't know them. Some of the people will simply get the job from their parents. They know that they're going to get a job. They maybe go to some other internship or something like that. They can choose betterly. We don't see why this is a necessity for the old people. That's their burden. Thirdly, something from on the opening government. They said that with the contact with the people, you gain more social cohesion. Couple of responses. Firstly, they already explained to you excellently how 80 years old is selfish. If you're a selfish person and you see that yourself are harmed helping others, we believe that you're more likely to think about that you are the one who is harmed rather than being empathetic toward that person. Secondly, we believe that we have depersonalization usually to those certain groups. You have lots of racist people telling, I'm not racist, I have black friends. Because usually see that their black friends are somehow different. We believe the same thing happened with these people. Yes, maybe I'll say, yes, I have some friends from certain socio-economical backgrounds, but they won't necessarily link it to those socio-economical backgrounds. Because usually people otherwise the groups that are really easy to make rationalizations. Thirdly, people are not getting genuine experience of poor or underclass people. They just gather with them or something like that, but they don't have a genuine experience. So we believe that we mitigate hardly that. Now to my moral argument. We believe that there is no moral responsibility towards state. Why is that? First reason, you don't choose the state you are born in. You're simply born in something, it's a lottery birth, you cannot choose it. Secondly, you cannot easily opt out of that. Immigration is really costly. Secondly, there are language barriers. I cannot move to Hungary because I don't know anything of Hungarian except goulash. Thirdly, we believe that your friends and family lives in your country. So it's really unfair to let you force outside. And fourthly, even if you migrate to some countries, usually that countries also have some, you might also have the curse of powers over you. We believe it's unfair. Thirdly, state gives you some benefits, that is true, but you already pay for all those benefits. If state provides you with infrastructure, with roads, with healthcare, you pay taxes and pay back to those society for those things. Fourthly, we believe that people are not responsible for the problems they are claiming. I'm not responsible for a lacking of social cohesion in my country. That's simply not my responsibility. I cannot be harmed just because there is some problem that I don't have, that I'm not guilty of doing that. We believe it's highly problematic. And fourthly, it's not necessity. We believe that even if it's all is true, it's simply not necessary thing to do. So it's disproportional to coerce people in doing something that's going to harm them if it's not necessity and if they don't have moral responsibility toward their country. Now, second point of my substantive. How it harms the people who are going there. Now, opening opposition usually base their case upon they are losing 1 year. So instead of 59 years of working, they're going to have 58. We're going to explain to you that you use continuity of your life, and that 1 year of continuity is much more harmful for you. How is that? Usually, firstly for education. Time is zero-sum game, honorable planet. If I have to spend some time doing the things that I don't want, and if I'm sometimes even sent from my home, as a government basic case also on that, that means that I have much less time on doing things like focusing on my education, learning a new language, or something like that. Why is it beneficial? Because usually you need to have continuity in order that education be as successful as you want. So for example, you don't speak one language for a year, or you speak it much less than you would, that means that you're probably going to forget a lot of things. That means that you're going to need much more time after that to know that language. The same the things like math skills. IT skills. Usually those skills are recognized, the most needed in the market. We believe it's highly problematic. Secondly, we believe that, we believe that you have a delay in the job market. Since 1 year you don't work, something that the market wants you to work, you have a delay, you need much more time in order to be specialized to that job market. Thirdly, emotional relations. We believe that usually if someone coerces you to do something, to go somewhere outside of the city, that means your emotional relationship are usually going to be harmed. So just because those are people of 18 years old, doesn't mean that they don't have some strong emotional relationship, either with their parents, either with their family, or something like that. They are the only ones who are to decide to that. Yes, maybe they're not going to be completely destroyed, but they're definitely going to be harmed because you don't see that person as much as you want, you don't even have time as much as you want to communicate with them, etc. We believe it's highly problematic. Finally, no thank you. We believe that societal structures that happen when you mix with the people are usually oppressive to a certain people. Let's think, for example, about gays in military. We believe that when you mix people from around the country, that usually the dominant narrative of that country is presented in that societal group. So what is happening? For example, you can see them when you have conscription in the military. Most of the people, since they're mixed, you have the average opinion in that country. That usually you have you're out of order, you have some problems, like homophobia. We believe it's really harmful for people who are, for example, gays, transsexual, and from disadvantaged groups, because they're really harming those ideas. Because narratives that are presented in those groups are directly harming them and feeling them insecure, feeling them anxious, etc. We believe it harms the people emotionally. We believe that harms them psychologically. We believe it can even have harder psychological treatments. We saw that in Yugoslavia when you had conscription, the loss of the gays suffered much more from the mental diseases than they are suffering right now when you don't have conscription. So we believe that that's because when the comparative here is when you're not coerced to go someone else. You can choose a societal group you're going to belong to. So you can go to the progressive groups, like to the NGOs, to the groups in the university, when more people think like you, which is highly beneficial for your mental health. Honorable panel, we explained that there is no any moral responsibility, no necessity, and there are direct harms for those people. We are more than proud to oppose.